Greetings. Hi, everyone. Welcome to AARP Indiana's inaugural virtual event in the series known as Caregiver Weeklies. I'm Addison Pollock, as the banner says, and I am joined by my fellow Director of Community Engagement, Emily Gorman. Hey,
Hi,
Emily.
everyone.
Good to see you, Emily. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. I'm excited for this conversation and
Me
kicking off
too.
this great event. Um, all right, so we appreciate you all joining us for this very special event. Just a quick overview, the Caregiver Weekly series will feature live interview style videos with caregiving experts from across the state of Indiana each week in November. So as you may know, National Family Caregiving Month is November, so we're celebrating it each week. All month, we will cover a suite of topics related to one of the most important jobs that a person can have, which is caring for a loved one. Whether that's a family member, a friend, or a neighbor, we just want to make sure that their needs are being met and that you are equipped with the tools and information that you need. So it is a pleasure to kick off this series with AARP Indiana's own state president, Linda Dunno, who's going to join us on the screen here.
Good
Yes.
morning.
Hey, Linda. Good to see you.
Uh-huh.
Linda is going to present on AARP's popular Prepare to Care guide, which is designed to help and develop and sorry, designed to help develop and implement a caregiving plan. You can find this guide at aarp.org/caregiving, which I believe we have a banner of. Yeah, you can reference that URL to find the Prepare to Care guide. You can download it. You can request a free copy. It can be mailed to you. One last reminder, if you are viewing this live, you have an opportunity to ask questions. So feel free to put your questions in the comment section and on Facebook or YouTube, and we will do our best to address those. But without further ado, I want to introduce our guest, Linda. Linda is as I mentioned, the AARP Indiana State President after having served as the Community Impact Team Leader for Fort Wayne, as well. She has been a member of the State Executive Council and our legislative team. She's very busy, as you can tell. Uh, Linda received the AARP Indiana Andrus Award in 2016. She is an experienced family caregiver, so she's got some great knowledge and experience to share with us. She's a retired emergency services 911 director for centers in Ohio and Maine. She was born and raised in Ohio and was transplanted to Fort Wayne about 12 years ago. So she is a Hoosier. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Linda.
Well, good morning. Um, Caregiving, it's something that a lot of us are doing that maybe was not expected. My experience with caregiving has had two levels. I currently help take care of my 98-year-old father. And I've also been a caregiver for my handicapped grandson, who was with us for 5.5 years. Both very intense. Both, it's an honor sometimes to be a caregiver, but we also know how stressful it can be. And hopefully, the information we give you this morning is going to be able to help make that job a little bit easier. So, the Prepare to Care is one of the best printed information guides I think AARP has put out. I used it myself, and it just helps guide you page by page on how to collect information that you're going to need in the future, or that helps you keep focused on what's important as far as caregiving. Our agenda today is to learn 5 steps to create a caregiving plan, to connect with other family caregivers to share tips and information, and learn about resources that are available to you. Next slide. We do juggle many tasks. Family caregivers, anybody that's experienced knows that it can be very difficult between doctor's appointments and health issues that pop up between you and the person that you're caregiving. And juggling that can really be stressful sometimes. Next, please. Caring for others, I love this. It is only in the giving of oneself to others that we truly live. The human contribution is the essential ingredient. And that is a quote from Dr. Ethel Percy Andrus, who is the founder of AARP and also the National Retired Teachers Association. Next, please. Are you prepared to be a caregivers? Um, I don't think you can prepare for it. It comes as a surprise. I think our generation is finding as we age, taking care of parents that, longevity has increased. People are living to 100 today. My father's 98. He'll be 99 in February. If you'd have told me in my 20s or 30s, did I think dad was going to live that long? Probably not, because longevity is not a big deal in our family. He is the longest living relative so far. So sometimes it's a surprise, and you factor in the fact that I'm not that young myself, and it can be a juggling act that's tough. Next slide. The 5 steps to creating a plan is to start the conversation, one of the most difficult parts of the plan. Then to form your team, make a plan, find support, and care for yourself, which is probably the second hardest in the whole scope of things. Next, please. Starting a conversation. It's difficult sometimes to talk to a parent about things that they, especially the generation of my father, private things. You didn't share a lot of this information with your family, and trying to get them into a conversation where they feel comfortable sharing that information, because you need to know everything from finances down to their final plans and what they want to do. So look for an opening, which isn't always easy. Sometimes mine happened in an emergency room. The doctor just sat down with my father and said, you need to be putting some things in place. Basically took his keys away from him that day, which was very difficult for him. And then respect your loved one's wishes. And I think, that's the hard part, especially if it's not an easy conversation. Um, and getting them to talk. And then as they share, respect the fact that it's very difficult for them to share this. And then size up the situation. Sizing up the situation can be, okay, dad can't drive anymore, so who's going to be running him to doctor's appointments to help him do his errands? Um, it's different. Some are bedridden, and that takes 24/7. Who's going to be there? Do we put them in an institution? It's a difficult part of the conversation. Next slide. Review finances. Like I said, the generation that we're working with didn't share finances. This wasn't something that the family talked about. You didn't know what your father made. You didn't know how much investments they had. You didn't know what their insurance coverage was. It was something, and what their assets are. They kept very close to their chest. It was like, this isn't something that we talk about, and we're not comfortable with this. So, be patient. A lot of times you can just ask them. With my father, it was bringing out a lockbox. Here it is, go through it and find out what you need and what you need to review. Next slide, please. Counter resistance. I just don't want to talk about it. Like I said, this is probably the most difficult part, is you're invading their privacy. And it helps to remember that, and kind of put yourself, in a play role of how would you feel if your kids came to you, or somebody came to you and asked for the same information, and try to be very patient. It may not happen in one day. It may take several attempts, but just don't, give up. Next slide. Form your team. Now, this sounds great. When we started taking care of my father, I was pretty much a team of one, because everybody else worked. And some people don't have the luxury of having family close by, or other people that can help you. And this is where looking at your resources and trying to find out how you can maybe schedule appointments at different times, so that person that is part of your family that works can step in and take over. It's not easy, but you're looking for people that live nearby. Things are going to happen that you can't cover something for a day, and you need that backup. Can help with simple tasks. and will share their talents. You'd be surprised. There's certain people. I had the talent of being able to draw dad out. Other people in the family weren't as maybe as lucky about getting dad to talk about things, but I think there's a comfort that you build over the years. I have been doing this since 2011, and there's a comfort of they get dependent on you, and that's something else you've got to brace yourself for. It gets to the point where maybe there's only one person on the team that this person will talk to because they're the only one that is in that comfort zone. So, it's not a contest. It's what is best for the patient or the person that's being given the care, and work around the things. And nothing's worse than maybe somebody else stepping in and going, why does dad tell you all this stuff and doesn't share it with me? Well, it's a comfort that gets built. But like I said, it's not a contest. We have to focus on the best care we can give the person. Next slide. Determining the number of team members, it'd be nice if you had that luxury. Sometimes you don't. There's two of us, and I have two sons that step in once in a while when there's a need, that are flexible enough in their jobs and et cetera that can step in and do things for grandpa. And a lot of people don't have that luxury. So, do the best that you can. Don't forget that you have friends of the family that might be able to step in. I guess it just came to mind that I took care of my father-in-law too the last 6 months that he was around, and there was a brother and his wife that stepped in several times and helped us so we could have a night off and get out and do something. So look past the immediate family as trusted members of the family. Assign roles and responsibilities. That has to be flexible. You may be the person that takes them to all the doctor's appointments, and then you become ill yourself or something comes up that you can't. So there has to be flexibility in that. And focus on the care recipient. I think that's the most important thing. There's times that you may grit your teeth, bite your tongue, and say, okay, step back, look at what's best for dad or whoever you're taking care of. Next slide. Make a plan. Well, that sounds great. Plans get changed, but if you can get the basics down, meet with your family and friends and say, okay, who's going to be, what's your flexibility? Who's going to be able to step in and do this when I'm not available? Assess the goals and needs of your plan. There needs to be transportation. Somebody may have good intentions but don't have a dependable car, can't always be available at a certain time, and delegate what responsibilities you can. I live with my sister now, and she pretty much has taken over doing dad's laundry. I'm more of the medical person that talks to the doctors and goes over his medications and stuff. So look at who's got what strong points and assign them if it's possible. Next slide. Make a plan for the team meeting. My sister and I, by living together, have a lot of team meetings, quote unquote. We're always discussing. We had an issue yesterday. It's like, okay, where do we move forward? What do we do? And make sure you're talking, especially if they're in a facility, to the right people, because we got some misinformation yesterday, and we're panicking on how we were going to answer dad's needs. And then we talked to another person later in the day and found out that the first person had given us misinformation. So make sure you're talking to the right person if your loved one's in a facility. And keeping everyone informed of the plan. Once in a while, we give updates to our kids just so they know where things are with grandpa, that if somebody have to step in, we keep a written ledger of all his doctors and their phone numbers and who to contact. And we try to put appointments and stuff. Sometimes we get a little behind on entering things in that book, but it is something that can be picked up if somebody has to take over. So taking notes is very important. We found that out when my sister retired and moved in with me, that there were so many things she didn't know, and it was a reference tool for her. Next slide, please. Find support. This can be anything from the people in a facility. My father's in assisted living. Support could be a support group where you go to and talk to people. By living together, my sister and I, knock things off of each other all the time. But if you're alone in a situation, try to find somebody. I have a best friend that lives out in Pittsburgh, and I'll get on the phone and say, I need to vent. And we spend an hour on the phone. It's important to have that outlet, someplace that you can talk to somebody outside of the situation and help you put things in perspective. Professional help, if you don't have the luxury of having people close by, there are agencies that can step up and give you that support. Next one, please. Hire help. This isn't always a option for everyone. Healthcare facilities are expensive. It's, not something that you think about. And of course, if you're reviewing finances, where are the finances? Who's going to pay for this? Secure their safety. We pop into the facility my father is in at unannounced times. We just show up. They never know when we're going to be there. And we moved him 2 years ago, and there was a reason for that. We found out he wasn't getting good care. I know that a lot of these places are short staffed right now, and it's really tough. Exploring housing options, it's not cheap. It's expensive to put a loved one into a facility. And you want to make sure that you check with two or three different sources at least and compare prices. What do you get for that cost? What do they cover and what don't they cover? And it seems, like I said yesterday, we ran into a situation where apparently the staff didn't know what our investment covered. And so you're going to run into little glitches here and there. But I think the biggest thing that we looked at was making sure that dad was treated with respect and was listened to. And I think that's one of the most important things, that he wasn't just, put in a room and basically shut the door and forgotten about. Support groups. You can find those, it's as far as a support group, we look at family. Dad within the facility doesn't have as many people to interact with in this facility as he did in the one in Ohio, unfortunately. And that's one of the things, it takes an effort from the person along with, the people in the facility. And he's at 98. He pretty much wants to sit in a recliner and watch TV, and that's okay if that's, what he wants to do. But we'd like to see him interact a little bit more. So explore what's available in the housing. Sometimes they have crafts, they have movies, they have different things that are available, and encourage them to participate because interaction is very important. Next slide. Care for yourself. This is a tough one because you're on 24/7 call. You may not realize it when it first starts, but trust me, you're not into it very long when you realize, something happens, somebody falls. If they're in your home, you don't get much of a break. And tap into resources for home care, even if it's just somebody that comes in for an hour or two. Technology. Like I said, I get on my phone and I call my girlfriend and we talk for an hour sometimes too. You just need to talk to somebody outside of the event and say, I need to vent because it's not easy. I don't think anybody can sugarcoat it. Being responsible for another person, raising children's one thing, but when you switch roles with a parent, it can be very stressful because you don't want to step over that invisible line of, disrespect, and that can be difficult. If you're still working, your employer, if you have flexibility. My son, when I had my grandson here, the company he worked for was wonderful. If he had to leave, he was able to make that time up somewhere else. Everybody doesn't have that flexibility. So if you don't, then that's where you need the team concept. You need to have somebody to take your place when you're not available. And review finances. This is something that my sister and I do almost monthly, is sit down and look at what dad has and kind of project out what he's going to need for the next 2 or 3 months to a year to 5 years. And, at 98, you don't know how much longer. He's almost 99. How much longer is he going to be around? Nobody knows. And it's amazing, like I said, with longevity today, it's tough to plan out. It's sometimes 5, 10 years. And if you're caring for somebody that's a young person, that could go on for a lifetime. And so review those finances and also investigate on what resources are available if the finances are getting low, because there are sources out there. Next, tips for caring for yourself. Talk to your doctor. Um, Advocate for you. And I've done this. Just about a month ago, I told my sister I need a couple of weeks off. I just need to get away from this for a little while because I've been doing it for so long, and she's fairly new to it. She's only been doing it for a couple of years because she used to work. And you do. I sat down the other day and read a book from cover to cover. I haven't done that in years, and it helps. That's advocating for yourself. I'm taking a day off. Somebody else needs to deal with the situations. Take a break. It is, take advantage of services and support. They are out there. But I think the most important thing is find somebody that you can talk to outside of the situation, and also just say, I don't think there's any weakness. I don't think there's any disrespect to saying, I need a day off. And find somebody to be able to step in for that short period of time. Because if you're not well, you're not there for the person that needs the care. And so it's very important to take care of yourself. Next, here are some resources. I think you're going to find a lot of things that maybe even will point out angles you hadn't thought of or things you haven't thought of in caregiving. But the AARP Resource Center is Community Resource Center, and Learn are great resources on the AARP.org website. And I think you're going to be amazed at what's in there. But like I said, the booklet itself, if you bring it up on the computer or request a hard copy, I think hard copies are still available, is one of the best ways of seeing it in black and white, hard copy, on here's what you need to talk about, here's what you need to do, this is the information you need to collect. And it's a book that you can leave layout if somebody has to step in and take care of the person for a short period of time. Everything's right there. And I think that's probably something I can't stress enough, is writing everything down in case something happens to you or another caregiver, so that somebody can step in. And the learning curve can be enormous, especially when you're taking your loved one to 6 or 7 doctors, and where they're at and how to get there, and the phone number, and what your loved one sees that doctor for. And I know we've used that reference tool quite a bit. Next. So you've had 5 steps to creating a caregiving plan, and you know the resources are available. And I say, God bless you if you find yourself in this situation. And I think more and more people are finding themselves in that situation because of the longevity today. And I think another thing that I haven't touched on that is not in here is knowing your wishes of the person you're taking care of. At 98, my father's like, I'm ready. I could go tomorrow and I'm happy. And talk about the difficult things of, do you want comfort care? Do you want them to use every, resource they have to keep you alive? And it's a tough conversation, but it's something you need to know, because it helps take some of the stress off of you when it's in writing, whether you go to a lawyer and get these things written out, living wills. But know what their final wishes are, because I'm telling you, you don't want to have to make those decisions or be standing there with 2 or 3 family members in a time of crisis trying to figure out what dad or mom or, the person you're taking care of wants as far as their final wishes. So try to get that piece in place too. Next. And I guess that's it. And like I said, look for the resources. AARP's got some wonderful resources, and may you have the strength to get you through it, because it's not an easy task sometimes. And God bless you for doing it.
Thank you, Linda. Wow, that's very powerful words to share. So we appreciate it, and I want to give you a round of applause. I hope everyone in the audience is, because there's a lot of good information that you share from a wealth of experience, and just a lot of nuggets in there. So this video will be archived, so you can go back and listen and take notes. But we don't have any live viewer questions at the moment, but we do want to spend maybe 5 or 10 minutes just kind of picking your brain, if you don't mind. And I can kind of kick it off. So you are an experienced caregiver. You said you've been doing this since around 2011 or so. Do you have any advice for new caregivers? And then do you have any words of wisdom for caregivers who are more experienced? Anything that you've learned along the way that you'd like to share with other experienced caregivers?
I think for new caregivers, the important thing is having the conversation and continual conversations, because as their health changes, their attitude changes. And so it's not necessarily that first conversation, this is what dad or mom wants, or, whoever you're caring for, and it's down in writing, and this is, black and white. Their health is, as it starts deteriorating, they start looking at things a little bit differently. I know we've changed with dad. At first, it was like, yeah, I want them to do whatever they can. And now, about a year ago, he had we almost lost him. And his attitude now is completely different. It's like, nope, I just want to be comfortable. I'm ready to go. And it's a difficult conversation, but one that's very necessary. And I guess it's the same thing for people that have been at it for years. You'll notice changes in the person you're caregiving. It's tough to watch a relative and a loved one deteriorate. If you're lucky enough to be a short-term caregiver, that you have a goal of getting this person back out to independence, that's wonderful. But a lot of us are taking care of people that are in their last quarter of their life, and their attitude changes. And another thing I think I'd like to insert is bring up subject matter, learn that history. We're blessed that dad still has his memory, and knows us. And that's another thing that can be very difficult. I have an aunt right now who has dementia, and I try to support my cousin who's taking care of her, because of the fact, you know, she doesn't know us anymore. And that can be very difficult and very stressful. And I encourage those people to reach out for a support group, because I think that's one of the worst things, is trying to love and take care of somebody that doesn't even know who you are anymore.
That's awesome. I did just want to ask you, you touched on it during the presentation about how difficult it can be sometimes to start the conversation about what is next and what comes next, with a loved one, with your parent, whoever that might be. And so I wanted to know if you could share any advice for the best way to begin a conversation with a loved one about their plans for future care and what that might look like.
Like I said, with my father, it started in an emergency room. He fell, and he had been having some balance issues. We had had the discussion that maybe he shouldn't be driving. The doctor made the decision for us in the emergency room. She just basically said, you have no business behind the wheel of a car. A lot of times it's not that easy. We were following dad when he was driving. We were in the car with him. There were times that I said, can I get out? And where do you push that envelope? Where do you finally say, no, this is enough? And, does it cause problems? I'm sure it does. If it hadn't happened that easy for us, I hate to think what the conversation was. And try to switch roles. What would it be like if somebody told you today that we need your car keys? I'm sorry, you're not going to be driving anymore. It's the lack of independence. It's that fact that now you have to depend on somebody, and keeping the conversation going after that's difficult, because it's hard for some people to ask for help. They may sit at home for 5 or 6 days before they tell you they need something at the grocery. So be aware. Dad was at home for quite a while, and when you walk in, check, the refrigerator, making sure they have enough food, because there's a pride factor there that you have to overcome. It's difficult to ask, and they have to get past that. Dad has no problem now.
Yeah. I guess it just takes a second of putting yourself in their shoes to get that perspective of how it must feel. So that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, that is really good. Linda, I know you talked a little bit about how your sister and you are kind of the main two caregivers in the family, and you said you've recruited your sons to help a little bit. Are there any other folks that you include in your caregiving team? Folks from, you know, church or social groups, friends, anything?
The problem with Dad living to 98 is so many of his friends are gone. And that's something else you deal with. A depression sets in because of the fact he's the oldest family member alive. His friends are all gone. Mom passed away in 2005. And that's what I said. It's the age factor that sometimes can make things difficult because there is no peer group left anymore. Um, and so we have a couple cousins that we were not close to when Dad was healthy. They lived in Florida for years, that have come up out of the woodwork because now they're interested in hearing family history, that will call him. They will send him pictures that they have of family members and etc. And he brightens up, and he makes the comment, I never heard from them before. And so once in a while somebody will pop up. And another cousin was just here because she has a daughter that lives in Michigan. She lives in South Carolina, but she always makes a point to stop by and see Dad. And I think that's important to encourage people to stop by. My oldest son goes on Wednesday nights and takes Dad out to supper. And because of COVID, hasn't been able to, but used to sit and watch movies with him on Wednesday night. They need a break in their routine, and they need to see somebody besides the caregiver. Because when we walk in, we have a job of sometimes reprimanding him for things that he didn't tell us, making sure that he has all his supplies, doing his laundry. We are the day to day constant. And sometimes you just need a new face to give them a little bit of an uplift. And so we've been lucky. We've got some people that have stepped forward to do that.
Definitely.
That's amazing. This one, I know that you can probably give some personal advice for as well. My next question is, what advice would you give someone who lives a long distance from their loved one, but still wants to be able to help? And I know that your sister was in that position, and I wonder what advice you would have given her for being so far away from her dad.
Well, the way we handled it was, number one, I tried to update her anytime something happened or something changed so that she was aware. And she, on the other hand, would take vacation days once in a while to give me a break. But I think information's the biggest thing. And sometimes being a retired 911 director, something else that I can encourage people to do, if your loved one lives alone and has a telephone and may need help, they tend to call a family member, and they may need immediate help where you need to call 911. Have the 7 or 10-digit number of the emergency services in their hometown. Let's say you live in Illinois and mom and dad live in California. Make sure you have the non-emergency number that you can call, because they can switch you over to 911, and their address, any pertinent information, their age, male, female, to save time and get an emergency squad to the house if needed. And that's one thing I don't think I can stress enough, because if you call 911 from California, you're going to get your local. They don't know mom and dad. They don't know their address. What you need to do is have that information right by the telephone. So in case that call comes, because like I said, they don't like asking for help, and they'll pick up the phone and call the daughter or the son saying, I'm having chest pains. And all of a sudden, how do I get help? So have that 10-digit emergency number available at all times.
That's a great point. That's great advice. Thank you.
Yeah, you typically don't think of that. So that's
No.
a good nugget of information. And that comes from your, professional, background
Mhm.
too. So that's great. Um, Linda, thanks for spending, the half an hour with us. This is the last question before we kind of close things out. Last but not least, you talked a little bit about caring for yourself. What are some of your best strategies that you would recommend to others? Like, how do you best care for yourself? How do you make that a priority?
Don't feel selfish. You burn out. I've done it. And I'm lucky enough, like I said, to have my sister. And it's not a weakness, I think, to give the best of yourself to the person you're taking care of. You have to keep yourself healthy, mentally and physically. And there's times that I just put my hands up and say, okay, I need a break for a couple of days. And like I said, it hasn't been a month ago. I took 2 weeks off. I told Sis, I said, he's all yours. And I don't feel that's disrespectful to dad. I don't feel it's disrespectful for my sister. There's just times when we look at each other and go, it is. We have had dad to the doctor like 3 times in the last 2 weeks. As they age, more and more times that happens. We've also picked up prescriptions. We've also picked up supplies that he's needed. So it's almost getting to the point where it's a daily. We either hear from him, we hear from the facility of something he needs or something. We hear from a drugstore, there's something to pick up. And it can really wear on you after a while because you feel like you have no me time. And I lived alone for 20 years. And so I struggle with that once in a while. And I don't apologize for it. It's just having the comfort of saying, okay, I need a break. Somebody else needs to step in. And I don't think that's selfish at all. I think it, like I said, in the end, it gives you more strength and stamina to take care of the person that you're responsible for.
Well said. Well said.
Thank you. And that's pretty much all that we have time for today. So, Linda, I wanted to say thanks to you for everything. And I think adding the personal aspect of everything that you have dealt with in your own world I think that's where some of the most valuable information comes from, is from those who are actively doing it. So I appreciate that. And I admire the hard work that you and your sister are doing for your dad. So thank you. And then I did just want to mention that I hope that everyone will join us for our next episode of Caregiver Weeklies, which will be next week, November 10th at 10 a.m. So same time next week. We're going to hear from representatives from 2 of Indiana's regional area agencies on aging, Aging and In-Home Services of Northeast Indiana and Sequoia Aging and In-Home Solutions. Todd Honeycutt and Dustin Ziegler are going to be joining us next week. So we're really excited to have them. And again, that's next Thursday, November 10th at 10 a.m. And that's all we have time for today. So I don't know if Addison, you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, just thank you everyone for watching this, and share this conversation if you think that it's an important one that others should hear. So we appreciate your time, and good luck everyone, and we'll see you here next week, I guess.
And again, if you do need any more information, you can head to our website, aarp.org/caregiving. There's some good stuff on there.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks, Linda. Bye, everyone.